Well, one of these days, I promise, I will look at the intro music. I'll figure out what's going on. The wonderful countdown here, really jiving up, getting us pumped here. I am going to open the door today. A man that's a doorman, a doorman for no one. I will be
Get off
his
my
doorman.
field.
John, that was wild. We will talk about that. We
Yep.
have at least the opening game TV ratings to talk about, courtesy Mike Mitchell, plus everything UFL Week 1 here. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. First off, John, how are you?
I'm good, man. It was an interesting first week, as the old Native American saying goes. May you live in interesting times. That's not always a blessing, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's going to be a lot of overreaction, understandable, but I think there's going to be some legitimate reaction here. So we're going to see.
Yeah, and so we're here today. Like and subscribe. We'll be back. The attempt is every week here during the UFL season. I was just telling John off camera, kind of just really busy times for me, thankfully good. So we will do our best to be here every week. I like the Tuesdays because we can do the TV ratings, but we were lucky today that we were blessed with at least the opening. Well, I don't know if that was, I mean, if you're UFL management, I don't know if you feel blessed with that, but we'll talk through all that. So anyway, like and subscribe. 2 free Royal Retros jerseys given out to winners here once we get to 4,000 subscribers. John has a code for Dustin's Royal Retros to get discounts. In the meantime, we're kind of co-branding this here. So, John, what is that if you want 10% off Royal Retros? But like and subscribe, give a thumbs up. Dustin's a longtime friend. He's even helping me out with a custom jersey I'm doing right now. But, John, what would you want people to do?
Well, I appreciate that. And Dustin has been awesome to work with for sure. Yeah, but if you go to Royal Retros and you use code JLS, John Lewis Sports, when you check out, you get 10% off your entire order. So it's awesome. I appreciate you always letting me plug that.
Let's do that. Everyone's checking in here. So we'll go through, we'll do general thoughts on the weekend. We'll talk the TV ratings, and then we'll go through the games. I did my best catching up. Baseball opening weekend. I was at the Mariners game yesterday. John, I kind of missed all of that at the end of the game, which
Let's go, David.
I was, I was a little buzzed last night, just coming home. We Ubered down and everything, went to the game, and I was watching the Memphis game here, and we were texting, and then we went to the game, and then I caught the end of the game, whatever. And I'm sitting here today and I go, wow, I completely kind of missed all of that, the engagement and everything at the end of the so we will talk through all that. Also, I was on Rod Peterson's show today, so check that out as well. The Canadians always like hearing that, how bad was the UFL kickoff? So, but we'll share our thoughts. John, I tweeted out last night, and I'll see if I can pull it up here, but grade UFL, kickoff weekend. I had a lot of C's and D's in my group chat, in my comments. What did you make of kind of just UFL weekend overall?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think C might for a lot of this overall might be a little generous. Maybe you're grading on a curve here, that there were some that were better than others. But yeah, we talked last week. I was very optimistic going in, or at least cautiously optimistic, maybe not very optimistic. It's 1 week. We don't need a soft launch for a league that is entering the second season. So I'm willing to give it a break. I said last week I was kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. I'm interested to see what the ratings are, but I'm also almost ready to throw them out because of March Madness and a lot of and baseball and a lot of other things going on. So I think probably the UFL would like to throw those ratings out for this first week as well.
It's really hard. And I was talking about this with Rod and everything too. Like it's just the worst time. And I know they did decent ratings last year. We'll talk through the game. I have it pulled up 1.181 last year. So to give the context, Saturday for that, I thought it was good at the time. You're going up, as we've said before, March Madness and baseball and everything. I mean, that's all that I saw. Obviously, I'm seeing the UFL teams because I follow them and kind of engage in that. But, algorithmically, it's a really tough weekend to kind of break in, I think, and just to even get any casual fans. And no disrespect, but until the game last night, I thought the first 3 games really had nothing to write home about. I know you said the Memphis game got more exciting in the second half, but that first half, Sunday morning, I mean, that was when Rod and everyone was texting me, I'm home. I'm watching this game. What's going on? Why isn't there anyone here? We can talk through attendance as well, but down across the board, I think Memphis only had 4,300 people, which is, if the UFL is putting that out, then that's obviously the high end of kind of tickets distributed. So to me, it was tough that way, where even if ratings come in decently, and we'll talk that 690,000 for the opening game, I don't feel like you saw a lot from a casual fan that would bring you back next week. Mike Mitchell, I guess we might as well put it up on here just to go with our thoughts. The first game peaked in the first 15 minutes, as you would expect. 844,000 dropped, average 690,000. So obviously peaked. You would like to see that peak at the end. Gives us a gauge. Any comments? I kind of rambled there. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think it peaked in the first 15 minutes because a lot of people tuned in, and I think they saw it, not necessarily the product on the field. I thought the broadcast was below average. Frankly, the fans deserve better than what I think Fox is giving them. It was interesting to see how different the two Fox games were from the two ESPN games. And Reed, you and I have talked before. Usually the Fox presentation has been so much better than the ESPN. Not that the ESPN presentation was bad, but frankly, Fox was better. And there was no pregame. It was one of the things that I talked about when I said that I think Fox can make this a thing. How about at least maybe a 10-minute pregame that gives you a little something? ESPN did that, and I don't understand why Fox did not. Joel Klatt does a great job. Give me Kevin Kugler and Joel Klatt. There you go. Leon knows. Give me two guys who I think have a really, a lot of interest in this league. Joel Klatt, every time I hear him speak, it's like I'm learning something from him. I mean, he's so good. And Kevin Kugler has just like legitimate excitement for the league. At one point, Kurt Menefee called the Houston Roughnecks the Houston Rough Riders. I mean, what are we doing here? At some point, and you have to get people in here who are invested. He fumbled so many times. It's almost like he's parachuted in, and he's just not interested in this league. For maybe the casuals, they don't really care. You obviously know it wasn't the Houston Rough Riders. For us, hardcore fans, that's not what we want to see. It's almost insulting to watch something like that. And I hate to be hard on announcers. You can go to my channel and see from about 20 years ago when I attempted to call college football play-by-play. It's very hard to do. And I was no good at it. And that's why I'm sitting in my basement talking UFL with you. So but there are people who are very good in the Fox stable. And I don't know why they continue to make Kurt Menefee the number one play-by-play guy for those kinds of things. As a Seahawks fan, he was the play-by-play guy for Seahawks preseason, and it was brutal every time. He's a fine studio host, but if Fox wants to make this a thing, there are a lot of ways to improve it from what we saw Friday night and what we frankly saw Saturday afternoon, and I think that's one piece of it.
Yeah,
rant over.
No, and I agree. It's interesting because, and like I said, people really do have their flavor. If you want the ESPN or the Fox side, what I feel like a lot on the ESPN folks is you get not all the time, and I hate to generalize, but you do get kind of the leftovers or the people working their way up, and so you get a lot of that. I turned on and you see Jordan Rogers trying to sit there with whoever the side person was and Aaron, the ESPN bets, and they're like, what's the point swing of this game? And, well, we had the 4 quarterbacks and it's really they just don't even know what to talk about, because you can't talk about betting on this league in because no one does anyway. And you certainly aren't going to bet on this game, this league in week 1, when you don't even really know who these starting quarterbacks are going to be or what they're going to play. Right. Are they really doing 2? Or they, we're going to do one quarter and one the next. But if the drive carries over, then we'll let it. I get all that, and it's league building, and we're trying to figure out all this stuff. But then the announcers have nothing to talk about either in that regard.
Well, but I will say, in ESPN's defense here, they did not beat us over the head with the gambling. I thought they integrated it pretty well. It wasn't, and hey, man, Joe Tessitore was selling it to us too. But they didn't, I think last year there was too much talk. They really tried to just kind of beat you over the head with the whole gambling aspect of it. I really like the way that they integrated it a little more, and it seemed a lot more natural. But you're right. I don't know where these point spreads came from. I mean, and ESPN had prop bets, that was interesting. But yeah, we had DraftKings and MGM. I don't know if they ever. I never could find anything as far as point spreads. I did see the futures on there, so I don't know where they got them. I am interested to see what the point spreads will be this week. Now, where we have a little taste of what these teams might be. But again, it's overreaction Monday all the time after a weekend of what we see for the first week. It's still coming together.
In terms of just kind of the slow kickoff, Leon here has a comment: players threatening to walk out, leave the league didn't help matters in attendance or ratings. I agree with that. You also had this weird, excuse me, and I'm really battling an illness. So just if I mute and cough, I'm totally fine. I am sick. And then the Mariners stuff yesterday, LeBron's like, wow, you sound really sick. But you had that. We have obviously had the impending strike. Then we have Kevin, what's his last? Kevin Seifert, right? I should know. Friend of the show, Kevin Seifert, come on.
ESPN,
the players have issued a letter. We're going to give it to Dwayne Johnson when he shows up tonight. They've advertised that The Rock is going to be in Houston. It's old news Friday now at this point, considering they played the weekend. But I thought that was a very poorly written letter, a very poorly conceived kind of plan that this is what we're going to do because we're so frustrated with Daryl and Russ, Brandon, and we haven't been able to get through. And, we want to get The Rock involved and kind of like corner him into this thing of like, well, we know you don't care, but you have more money and power, so please don't get involved in that. Then you had it come out that The Rock wasn't going to be there, but then it was a plane issue and he was supposed to go from Hawaii. And then did you watch all that where he posted like the pilot came out and got down? Anyway, so The Rock wasn't there. And then, then the ratings were kind of stinky. He was advertised to the media. They pulled out. Like, the whole thing was just weird. So I don't even know what Fox or UFL or anyone expected going into this. It was really just the weirdest Friday of like, okay, is this even happening here? Like, what's going on?
Well, and then you had, it was at Houston. I did do some research and I finally found the answer. America's Dome, or whatever they call it there in St. Louis, was not available because the World of Asphalt convention was happening. So they could not play Friday night at the Dome. I still believe they could have found a different game other than at Houston. We kept joking about it. What a gamble you're going to take here, no pun intended, with Houston to, have this Friday night game that, it's outdoors, which, they all are except for San Antonio, I guess, and St. Louis. But it was, they didn't show up. They didn't really show up that much when it was at TDECU in the first place. They showed up less at Rice because people said Rice, it was just a terrible setup all the way around. And then, it was funny. When I did a video and I talked about it was a gamble and will Houston fans show up? And somebody said, well, you're going to be making another video where you're apologizing to all the Houston fans. And that's not a video that's going to get made. And so we saw, what was it? 7,000 announced and, a lot of people dressed as empty chairs.
Yeah, I wanted to pull that up too. That's actually a great point. And we had talked, and just speaking kind of ratings, then we will do all the games here because I got thoughts about Donald and the Panthers, and we've got stuff about that the post game with the Stallions and the Defenders and all of that. But you have, if I'm looking here at the schedule and I can pop this up, because we had talked about this when we did the schedule breakdown, so obviously Houston on that, you knew that was going to be poor. Next week, I don't think Ford Field is getting shown up for that as well. And then you do have a Friday in Birmingham, week 3, TBD on that, and Birmingham and weather and heat. And is the tornado coming? We have what was the lightning strikes, kind of all that. We'll see what that goes. You just aren't setting yourself up a lot. You're back at Ford Field. You're just not setting yourself up well for that. We do have the final numbers on here. Let me make sure I point that up. I see Max asking that. I have too many tabs or things bookmarked here. Houston, 7,000. Again, and these are all on the high end, right? They're the leagues.
These are announced crowds, right?
Announced. 7,000 that for Houston, 10 for Arlington. I would feel good about that, just kind of given the back and forth of that. Memphis sub 5, and then DC normally does about 16, 17,000. If memory serves, down to about 12,000 for that for the Sunday night game. I mean, that's kind of your prime time. Sunday night, that's kind of DC gets that a lot. Stallions coming in. Should have, could have been a really hot atmosphere and pretty lackluster.
Yeah, and again, when we say announced crowds, anyone who's been around sports and professional, college, whatever, a high level where, seats matter and people and the fans matter. When you say announced crowd, that's not the crowd that showed up. Because I think if anyone watched that Memphis game, and frankly, Memphis is a lot better team. And, so there's not going to be, I know they lost, but there's not going to be a lot of excuses for those fans not to show up. Now, I will say the league needs to give them a solid here. They had an 11 o'clock a.m. local time game. You're going up against the NCAA tournament, which unfortunately, I mean, they didn't know at the time, but the Tennessee Volunteers are playing in the Sweet 16. So that's probably going to put a hurt on the crowd. You've got the church crowd who's not going to show up for an 11 o'clock game. There were just a lot of things that I thought could be wrong. And we talked about it last week. It felt like they maybe should have flipped the DC Birmingham game with that Memphis game. I thought that might have been the better idea for that. Again, it's all about, what's available and how you do it. I know there's strategy behind some of these things. I don't understand what the strategy was there.
Last comment here on this from me. We'll do a couple comments and then we'll transition to the games here because I have a comment here that'll lead to that. It's just hard. And we've talked on here and people are always going to talk ratings. And I've always said this on here. The matchup doesn't necessarily, right? You have a lot of people, the DC Birmingham game. Generally, it's dates and time slots. So you do want to position, it's kind of like the cart before the horse that way. So you want to position your best game in that best time slot, but I don't think people are watching the UFL based on the teams that are playing in it then the time slot. But I think the league, like you said, needs to work on that because you look here at this, the Friday night, horrendous with that. Let's look at just a couple comments here, and then we'll have to that, unforced errors made by the UFL. AEW does that time of attendance total. They count tickets distributed. Where was the other one? Here. So this will be where we transition. It's too bad, really. What's worse, Houston's attendance or their actual play on the field? Because here's the thing, right? Anthony Miller, and we're going to have our power rankings. We've had a lot of talk about, Curtis Johnson and everything for altfootball.com here. The decision to keep Curtis to this year, we said was bad. We kind of knew this was going to be bad. And then to kind of see what was going on here on the field, do you remove Curtis Johnson at this? Like, what is your thoughts, just on Houston, the game, right, getting blown out by St. Louis at home, but then just how bad they looked in the process?
They didn't look competitive. When you start talking about body language, and I think it was like in the second quarter, it's like it was bad. There was one point where, and they showed it a couple of different times where Tom Cable was talking to CJ, and it almost felt like he was trying to tell him how to coach this team. Curtis Johnson looks a little lost sometimes on the sidelines, and I don't understand. It's the criticism that we had last year. The what we thought about going into this year, it was a surprise that he was coming back. Some of the play calling, and I'm not play calling guy, but some of the play calling that we saw, I don't understand it. Now, he's coached a lot more football than I have, but I did not understand a lot of it, and it led to what you're seeing right there on the screen, 31-6. Don't take anything away from St. Louis. Manny Wilkins was incredible, and that team offensively and defensively, they were doing a lot of good things. But if St. Louis had any questions, or they really kind of needed, it almost felt like a preseason game. It's like they've got they've kind of retooled a lot of things on offense. There was no better way to start the season for them than to play the Houston Roughnecks.
Like you said, not to take anything away, right? So St. Louis is looking good here. Does that negate anything they've done? What's the schedule coming up to week 2 here? They'll be playing. I got too many freaking tabs open here. What do you see St. Louis doing here? Or do you feel bullish on them? I mean, the league needs them to be well to succeed.
Agreed. I don't want to, again, take a whole lot away from week 1, especially week 1, and you're playing the Houston Roughnecks. But, they can get tested there in week 2 with San Antonio. Now, San Antonio didn't look great, but they're going to be a better team. Kellen Mond, quarterback for San Antonio, when he starts to get into rhythm and kind of gets more comfortable, I think that's going to be a much better team. St. Louis, I'm bullish on them. I was a little worried because of all kind of the coaching turmoil that happened before the season. Then there was the whole we've talked about that, ad nauseum with the quarterback changes and everything. And then when they went into the season, they posted, our starting quarterbacks. So it was like Manny Wilkins and Max Duggan. Well, sometimes if you got two quarterbacks, you don't have any, but I think there was some talk about maybe making packages for different ones, for different quarterbacks, but there was no way to pull Manny Wilkins the way he was playing. You just couldn't do it. Now, Max Duggan did get into the game late. But yeah, I just from that initial, game, and you're trying to take what you can from a first game against the Houston Roughnecks, I like what I saw offensively and defensively.
In terms of the AJ McCarron of it all, and there's been a lot made about his, and
Right.
PR and everything else with that. Do the Battlehawks need him? Did the ratings need him? I don't think that would have mattered. I don't think he was that big. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from him and kind of his popularity in that way, but and we'll have to see week 2. I mean, you can't look at the Roughnecks here and kind of give too much against the teams playing them. But was that needed? Was it time to move on? It looks like, they put up a ton of points.
They did. When Manny Wilkins had some opportunities, he did win a game for St. Louis, but he didn't look great a couple of times. Right. Leon's right. It was a layup for him. So yeah, you can hit layups all the time. So I think that was probably a good thing. I don't want to take anything away from AJ McCarron. I thought it was interesting that when he did leave, I've yet to hear any of his teammates really come to his defense. Maybe they have, and I just haven't seen it, which is very possible. But I think that it felt like St. Louis as a franchise, as a team, they were ready for something new and needed to go a little bit in a different way. And that's what they did with Manny Wilkins and Max Duggan. And Max Duggan was a huge signing. But Manny came in there and did what he did and looked awfully good in that first game.
Yeah, I would love to know the politics and obviously all team sports and especially football and the locker room and kind of all that. But I would love to know, especially in a league like this, with all of this stuff, with the strikes and the labor unrest and all that, because you have someone like AJ McCarron. Imagine if he's still involved in this, right? Yeah, in the strike. Do I there's so many different levels of the players, right? Where I feel like in the NFL, and obviously you're gonna, the Mahomes versus, the fourth string starting, whatever. But I just feel like here in the UFL, you might have someone that's like, this is my last shot, or this is my only shot, and I'm gonna hook and crave it. And then you have someone like AJ McCarron that's like, I'm just kind of over this, or hey, I can afford to do the strike. I have money saved. I don't know. I think it would be fascinating to know kind of the politics of all this.
Yeah, and if that is the case, if he felt that way, then he needed to make room for someone else to come in there to really, take advantage of the opportunity. I thought Manny Wilkins did. I thought we saw a lot of players take advantage on all the teams. There were even the bad ones, except Houston. It's really hard to find a positive out of any of that. But it felt like, with the other teams, there are players out there who are showing some promise, and then others who are, making that next step so far. Again, it's week 1, but still.
We had a couple comments here. Lee said that Houston's players played like they were already on strike.
That's good.
They said here, if AJ played for Houston, that would have been more interesting. What do you do with Houston now? I had the other comment I was looking for here, talking about, how Mark Thompson was having a field day on Twitter, and he was kind of going crazy. And I've thought that he was a little boisterous over the years, but I've mellowed out a lot in this offseason in terms of my stress level with all this. So Mark Thompson doesn't really bother me as much as maybe he did last year. But what do you do with this Houston thing? And there was the other comment I forgot to pull up before. I think it was Jared had said, there was all this talk TDECU, that's the holy grail. All we need to do is get them back. Well, obviously that doesn't fix the play on the field, right? It certainly didn't fix the attendance, but I just know I don't know what you do with Houston now. It's 2 years past kind of keeping the branding. I saw Brandon Silvers was tweeted about that. I had fun conversations with him behind the scenes as well. A lot of people kind of enjoying the Houston downfall right now, I guess, if that makes sense.
I guess I don't enjoy it because you need 8 strong teams in this league for it to succeed. Right. You're right. Leon's right about that. There are a lot of people saying we want Wade back. It's brutal. Why would you go? Number one, if you're a football fan in Houston, why would you go to that? If they're not putting something on the field that's, I think a lot of people want to watch, obviously, because they didn't show up. And the people who are in the know, not just the casual fan, the people who are in the know are probably like, why would we want to go back and see Curtis Johnson coaching again? You blew everybody out. You blow out the front office. You retool everything. Guy comes in there, gets rid of like a dozen players or whatever it was. And then you kind of got the same thing, because what do you expect? The buck usually stops at the head coach. And what we're seeing again is, I mean, we've seen it happen before now. We have seen a coach leave during the season. I think it was when Rod Woodson, left the Vipers, and that was a whole clown show in itself. You have to wonder if this continues. Now, again, you can't pull the plug after week 1, but if this continues, you have to think that the league has to have some difficult conversations.
Yeah, a couple of comments here, and then we'll move off of here. We want to talk to some of these other teams. We can circle around. Yeah, Sam here. I'm going to assume this is Sam Schwartz. It's probably not Sam Schwartz's team, but Sam just watched. He probably has his own little avatar there. Can anyone explain why C.J. Johnson wasn't fired? We all saw this coming.
Yeah.
David here says, I swear the Brandon Silversmark tweets that were better than the game. And then here's the last one from Zach, and I know a longtime listener here. Zach gets mad when we don't do the regular Fridays. Do you think the next step's to fire him? Unfortunately, Houston's reported rebuild didn't look like one. Part of me thinks it could have been the British show on turf and still lose. Just horrendous. And we're Houston with PJ Walker and Gene Jones. Like, everything kind of used to be, to see in 4 short year, 5 whatever after COVID and everything, like, to see this again. Not that you have a lot of like legacy and goodwill in spring football, but you did, right? Like, I was on Rod's show and we're talking, that's the difference of the CFL. That's the Saskatchewan Roughriders, or what the BC Lions, you kind of know what these teams are. And to have any goodwill at all and then get rid of it, to me, it would be tantamount to, the Defenders or the St. Louis. I mean, Houston was there in that top echelon. And it's really disappointing.
Well, and as the commenter there said a while ago, it's ruined the brand. Whatever that brand might be, it's a brand that some people might not know, the casual viewer, and if they know it now, it's like, it's not great. And then for all of us who know Houston and know what it should be, as it should be the Gamblers, maybe that's what they do. Maybe they change back to the Gamblers, because the Roughnecks brand, I mean, it's new Coke right now.
Last comment for me on this one, and we'll move to the Renegades game. We had media members at, I think, two of the event, like, very low attended. Just from, if we want to talk attendance, if you want to gauge interest in something, I think there were 3 or 4 people in the press box in Houston Friday night. So that just speaks to kind of the local media interest in this. I think that, to me, is another sign. Same with like the open practices in Arlington, but obviously you can't do a Memphis open practice in Memphis, or the gauge. But seeing 3 or 4 media members at the Houston kickoff game, it speaks to that. Do you have anything else on the blowout bloodbath at TDECU on Friday?
It's not worth talking about. It's really not.
All right. So let me get up here, and I really need to kind of navigate this site at some point and kind of figure out how to pull this stuff up. But let's talk Renegades here. Anthony was there bright and early covering this. Anthony Miller, tons of on altfootball.com today. I think already he has the 4 post-game reports of all the games. We have Russ and Danny's comments. I think Pat Ruffino has his Players of the Week article up. It's been really busy. So, like, super excited for that, just because, I kind of just help with the back end of that. So check all that out. Anthony has eyewitness reports on all of this. Renegades take care of business. I heard that AJ Smith was none looking too happy post-game. Thoughts kind of on this one and anything else?
Well, this one, I mean, was a surprise. Not necessarily a surprise that Arlington won, but a surprise that Arlington won, that big. I thought, like, Kellen Mond and AJ Smith, man, you put like that offensive coordinator with that quarterback, like some good things can happen. I think good things will happen for San Antonio once he gets a little bit, more used to the system. Luis Perez looked like Luis Perez. I mean, look at that, 20 for 25, 164 yards. No, he didn't throw a touchdown. But their running game was going pretty well. So it's good to see them back. It was good to see the Bandits, the logo back. That was pretty cool that they brought it back for the helmets. I mean, it's the little things. I thought it was an interesting game. Again, you had poor Kurt Menefee, like we had a Devontae Smith, and we had like all kinds of just disastrous calls there. What should but it was exciting to see that. I think when Arlington is good, that helps the league. I mean, it would be nice if all 8 teams, were good. Listen, Arlington might be able to do some damage this year. It's not. I don't think this is going to be the team we saw last year.
Anthony seems very high on them.
Yeah.
I know that you were just at Mr. Luis Perez's kind of book Zoom, and you have the copy. I'm surprised you were even able to put it down to participate.
Just some light reading.
There you go. Yeah, light reading. Surprised. I kind of thought the Luis story was kind of done, right? He's doing the book and the tour, and I'm kind of back, and I'm gonna. I don't know, right? Obviously, hang on to this as long as not in a bad way, but participate as long as I can. And here you go. I mean, he's had a great game. I mean, how much gas do you think is left on that tank? I'm just surprised. I really kind of thought this was like the farewell tour for Luis.
I thought exactly the same thing. We've talked about it here. To me, you don't write a book if you're going to continue to play. But it was interesting that he said in his virtual book tour that I attended that, if his family is okay with it, if he feels good, if he's playing at a high level, he wants to continue to play. And he was very high on the UFL as a league. And as we always say, the league of opportunity. He had nothing but good things to say. Now, again, I know this was a PR event. He wasn't there to make news. But he did talk about, with the whole Viper situation, he was ready to retire. Like he had that conversation with his family. And he may have told that story before, but he'd had that conversation with his family. He gets traded to the Renegades and they win the XFL title. So I think that gave him a little bit more juice. And he enjoyed playing the game again. It sounded like he did not enjoy playing it very much when he was with Vegas, and that was understandable because he's been through, name a spring football league. I think he played for the World Football League back in the 70s. I don't know. He's been around forever. But he's playing at a high level, and we saw him play at a high level, this weekend. So, no, I absolutely. Gridiron Coasters is right, man. You have to appreciate his commitment to spring football. And, he talked about the advice that he gives other quarterbacks. He's not in it just for himself. He's in there to kind of mentor these young guys. He still has that NFL dream, but he also wants, when football is finished, to coach. I think he'd be a great coach.
Absolutely. And then I have a couple comments here because I do want to talk about San Antonio and kind of AJ Smith and all of that. I love Luis. I love Luis. Yeah. He's been on the show. Great guy. Filled in when we had all the where Brian Scott got let go and then he had to come on. He's been very, very amenable kind of over the years. When he's like him destroying and Matt Corral are like the 3 people that you point to for your league. That's where I have a problem because they seemingly used this week with the book tour and the UFL kickoff to be like, look at Luis Perez, the face of this league, and one of these. And that's great for you or I, but you do get a lot of these casual comments like, well, like what development has he had or how far has he gone? You and we watch the games. And so I don't know if I would put all the hopes and dreams. Same with Destroying's, right foot. I don't know if I would put all my hopes and dreams of the UFL on Luis Perez. Any other thoughts on that? Because we'll talk Brahmas and then we'll talk Destroying here. But any other thoughts on Luis or the Renegades? No,
I think you make a good point. But I think also you see that he has gotten opportunities in the NFL. Like it's not like he's as Pat Ruffino and I have talked about, and I know you've talked about him too, it feels like Luis Perez is a 4A player. He's maybe better than Spring League, but he's not quite to the level of the NFL. And that's fine because he continues to do it. And I think he is a valuable commodity. But you're right. If you're a naysayer, you can say, well, yeah, he's not developed that much. But he's been in NFL camps. And I think that's all you can ask really is your opportunity to get into those camps and try.
For the Brahmas here, and I had a comment I wanted to pull up from David, and he also has a comment about the Bandits logo, if I remember that. But as the bloom come off AJ Smith, I love the guy. It's been a while since I've seen his trademark offensive fireworks. I agree with that, and we obviously last year, and we had the injuries and all of that, and everyone knows the championship game and Garbers and all of that, and just kind of the collapse of the Brahmas. But I agree with that statement from David. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. But you have to look at back-to-back games with AJ Smith. A terrible, UFL championship, and then you open the season like this. Now there were a lot of things at play, especially quarterback in the UFL championship game, and then really quarterback in a different way in this first game. Again, like I've said, now this will be the third time. I think if Kellen Mond gets comfortable in that system, like he could be really good. But you're right. All the time we were just talking about how it felt like AJ Smith should be a head coach in this league, or somewhere he should be a head coach.
But do you still think that?
I do. I mean, we're talking about 2 games here, and I think we're talking about 2 games that I don't know that it was play calling on his end. I mean, you're trying to work through a system, and there's some work to do. I don't know if the bloom has come off just yet, but there's like a coffee ring on his resume right now, and he's just he'll continue to get better, and I think we're going to see a lot more out of San Antonio than what we saw in week 1.
What I do like is a league like this giving him time to grow and mature and learn that way.
Yeah.
I am a huge AJ Smith. I mean, like, don't get me wrong on it, but I do.
Same.
And because I am the casual person that hosts this show, right? I mean, like that is, but I can say that from watching, the Brahmas are technically my team, even, whatever. Disappointing
right.
last year, you might not know that, but the Brahmas are actually.
I do remember that now.
But that question here too, why was Wade Phillips up in the booth? Seen a lot of comments about that, a lot of questions. Weird to see the head coach up there. They briefly mentioned it. They showed him in the booth. I remember them saying that he was up there. He wanted his coordinators to, like be field level, but I think AJ Smith was also in the booth, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not sure what was going on there. I think he did come down toward the end of the game, but it was almost, it's like Jerry Jones coming down at the end of the game. Like I didn't get that. Not sure that we're going to see that again. I mean, unless there was something else going on that, that he needed to sit down rather than stand. I don't know. Also, I mean, like Choctaw Stadium isn't like your traditional football stadium anyway. We're like, I'm kind of, I don't know. I mean, are you sitting up in the commentator? Like that to me is kind of interesting also, where it's not like you're actually in in the whatever. Okay, let's talk now. We had the infamous, so I'm at a wedding show. I have the game on my phone, this Flow wedding show. So we're there, I'm at my table, destroying. Makes the kick. Donald made the kick. First professional kick. What was it? 39 yards, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
And I tweeted, thank God Donald made a kick. We don't need to talk about this anymore. Everyone knows my thoughts. I think I don't have any issues at all with Donald. I just think that this goes for the WWE. This goes for the UFL or the XFL. I hate it when brands bend over backwards to for any celebrity that comes in their way. WWE used to do this forever. And like, you'd get like Jeremy Piven on from Entourage and they'd be, oh my God. I'm like, it's Jeremy Piven from Entourage. Like, let's not act like it. Anyway, so that's just my problem. He makes the kick. We're all good. And then he misses another kick.
Badly.
Not even close. So I'm like, that's why, again, like as big as Destroying is, he's still a special teams guy. I would never base my leagues anything around promoting. Obviously, we have Devontae Turpin, and I'm like, that's all we have. And then we have, and then he misses. John, what did you think of this?
Well, you talk about special teams. One of the guys I felt bad for was, Marquette King, who was out there trying to be the hype man, and he's, a hype man in front of 10,000 people. He tried. He's an entertainer, and he's also, if I'm a punter in this league, I've got some problems with the rules. That's another story. But yeah, I mean, you get it. The UFL wants to cash in and get this audience. We've talked about it before. There's a reason. I mean, if you see the UFL account, there's the ratio of destroying posts versus pretty much everything else. Now, let me say this though. They were cranking out the videos because I have an alert for the UFL, like anything on YouTube.
Yeah, because that's all they care about. They're like, oh my God, we got to get,
But I'll give them credit. They were you'd see a great play, and then 2 minutes later, my phone, I'd have an alert. And it was
are doing a better job. Fox's help. Yes, I would agree with that.
I loved it. So yeah, I cash in where you can. You got to try to strike and find these younger fans where they are, and maybe they continue to think that they're with destroying. We'll see.
Any other thoughts? I guess I'm going to pull up the other games here. This
Mhm.
website's horrible. Any other thoughts on this? San Antonio, St. Louis, kind of, or not St. Louis, AJ Smith, kind of any of that stuff. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, no. There's one thing the UFL's got to fix here. It's this awkward thing at the beginning where they present the game ball and then no one knows what to do. I mean, I'm nitpicking here, but it was so awkward last year, and they did it a few times, and it happened again. It happened again in some of the first games. We've got to fix that. Other than that, I thought it was it was a good game. It was fine, and Arlington is I think they're going to be a much better team than they were last year.
All right, so let's talk about this. So I was so excited. So Sunday I'm off. I'm going to go to the Mariner game, but I go, good. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to watch. I thought it was the Birmingham game first. I was so excited. This was the game I had, and I had to. I go, God forbid, the one game I'm able to watch live sit.
Right.
Is this. Got a little close. I had joked with you because we were texting about kind of the over-under of this, and I think it was 38.5. At the beginning of the game, it was 10-3. And this game and this first half, it felt to me like a lot of these CFL games where you get to the last like 2 minutes before half and it takes half an hour. And it was brutal, and we're kicking, and we're dependent, like all this. So, what did you make of the game? Panthers win here. Showboats, I did not think looked well. The attendance had its own issues as well. What did you make of this one? Not a great showing, in my opinion, on the Sunday morning slate.
And there was the desperation pick 6, which almost hit the over there if they'd hit the conversion. But I thought that, with Joe Tess and Jordan Rogers, I mean, to me, I thought that it was a better crew. I mean, I'm just coming out from the TV perspective, and I don't know if you noticed or not, but apparently ESPN has bought the rights to Red Hot Chili Peppers Can't Stop, because we heard it. I'm still hearing it in my head. But I thought the presentation was good. Tom Luganbill talking to coaches during plays. Mike Nolan going all in, had the headset on and was talking there. I just thought that was really cool. They had about a 10-minute pregame where they were, I thought it was a good introductory, for people who might not have seen the UFL. I just thought overall, and then, as I said, they did a really good job with integrating some of the gambling aspects. I think one thing we did learn, Bryce Perkins is a real deal. I mean, there's no question about that. Efficient there. You see that. Troy Williams, I mean, there's some work there. EJ Perry, there's some work to do. But for everything that Memphis has gone through here recently, I thought it was a better showing than maybe they would have had, some excuses if they didn't, if they showed up and looked like some of the Showboats teams that we had seen in the past. So I've said before, and I know you kind of laughed because it is funny. I said that they might be poised for the biggest turnaround in the UFL. Does that mean winning 3 games or 4 games? I don't know. But, if there was this might have been one of the better, 2 touchdown blowouts here that are not blowouts, but 2 touchdown games that we saw.
I did like the interactions with Mike Nolan, and we're talking on the side. I kind of made fun because they're like, well, what did you think of the quarterbacks? And, because they're doing the 2, like, well, we played last year and we played 3. We played 3 games. I'm like, you don't really, you're just taking kind of whatever. You're making the best you can here with all this stuff. But I did like that. I forgot to mention too, I like seeing a friend of the program, Brock Heward on. Yeah. Was at the Friday game. Brock's the one that I'm going to say, he's always the one on the sidelines, like talking, right. Brock kind of made that be a thing. Yeah. And so, I like that a lot. I write Brock a lot here just because they do this. He does the Mariners show, he does it every day, but I'm a big fan of him. But I like the access with that. You agree with, or as you said, kind of the different broadcast angles and kind of all that stuff. Sure. But yeah, the Chili Peppers, that didn't. Maybe I just mute it when I go to break. Like I did not notice that.
It's there. It was nonstop. Like, you can't stop. But you also, and then you had access to Jaron Horton, who, we got at least 1 or 2 F-bombs out of him. But, to talk to him as he's, being interviewed and talking during the play, or at least I just thought, like, the way that ESPN really did the presentation of this game, and even though it might have not been the greatest game of the weekend slate, I thought the presentation was there. It was solid, especially, again, after the 2, kind of Fox presentations we got.
Obviously, the Showboats and the head coach and stepping down, kind of all that here this week. Do you do we want a week to kind of refresh that? Do you think the Showboats have kind of any upsides here? Just kind of curious moving forward, thoughts on that.
I think they do. I think they, as I said, I think they performed a lot better than maybe a lot of us a lot of us expected. I know the one thing we saw, there was a shot there of Mike Nolan, and there was Daryl Johnston behind him wearing his blazer and his UFL shirt, and he had this pained look on his face. And in fact, he talked after the game to the Memphis Commercial Appeal, and it was saying like, we have got to figure out a way to get some fan engagement here, to the point where he was saying maybe we need to consult the Bills Mafia. Like, how do we get the fan engagement? Which I thought was interesting. Well, it kind of to bring them up in this article, but it almost sounded like, now I'm reading quotes, so I didn't hear it. So there's a lot of difference between when you read a quote and when you hear someone say it, but it almost felt like there's an ultimatum there. Like, this, we have got to find a way to make this work, in parentheses, unsaid, or else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't advocate for anyone to lose their job, but if you have been hired to be the Memphis ticket people, and we know, and they've been all these cities, and we've had all this big offseason push for all of that, and I haven't been obviously back with, was it Andy, right? Or Corey, the big Orlando one forever, that was very vocal on, but I don't know a lot of, like, I don't know if Samantha is running the Memphis, I don't know, like, whoever it is, but yeah, how do you walk into that stadium with 4,300 tickets sold, distributed, however you want to call it, and go like, yeah, this is awesome. I mean, this is year 3 of this, right? I mean, because we did the UFL second hub, right? And what would that have been, of 23 and then 24 and 25? Like, I tweeted, I mean, the Memphis experiment needs to end. I mean, this is just, and you had Fred Smith and FedEx and all of that. That's never really materialized. I mean, you hauled, they wanted FedEx here and he's going to buy the team. And see, this is just one of the first owners and we're going to sell all these. None of it's, I mean, I don't see any way in the world you look at the Memphis Showboats of any of these teams and go, I'm going to spend, $20 million to buy this franchise, like, or whatever the heck it would be.
Well, right. I mean, like, what? Yeah, you're like you've said before. Like, what are you buying? Memphis has done a lot of things to get out in the community, and I just wonder, like, what's the disconnect here? Like, they do so much stuff. Their social media stuff to me is really, really good, like you said. I just don't understand where the disconnect is now. I don't know that you pull the plug after week 1 and say, like, okay, that's it. We'll play out the string. Again, stop having 11 a.m. local time games in Memphis. That's not going to work. But I will be interested to see, and hopefully, if the weather holds out here in a couple of weeks, I'm thinking about going down there to kind of check it out, and hopefully we'll have good weather and maybe a good crowd. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Any other thoughts on that? We'll get the last game here, and then we'll get out the top of the hour. I'm going to see Snow White tonight with my brother John. We're gonna go have a beer and go see. I gotta see how bad this movie is. So we're gonna go see that.
You're gonna go hate watch Snow White.
I am gonna go hate watch Snow White. Yeah, and then anyway, so we'll do all that. Any other thoughts on that before we get to the last game?
No, I just let's not pull the plug on Memphis just yet. Let's give them some time. I mean, they might be living on borrowed time, but let's give them a little bit more.
I tweeted out, because we had the group chat going during the game, and I tweeted out, broke is UFL expansion, but woke is UFL reduction, and getting rid of Memphis and Houston, roll those players into the other 6 teams, use that money to, use the excess money to pay the players more, get year-round health insurance. We were talking in the group chat. I think if you had kept with the spring league model, as opposed to all this glitz and glamour and money and Fox and everything that got dumped into this, I would be really curious where we are now. And even if you only have 6 or 8 spring league teams, they got $450,000 for their championship. I know the players didn't get paid and all that, but if you could have progressed versus that, I think once you slapped USFL on this Fox product back in 22, it set a standard that was never going to hit without the necessary engagement or, engagement and investment. But I would just be curious if we still had the jousters and the aviators running around. Are you pulling much less?
Well, that's the question. Would it be that much different than what you have right now? I mean, I think that is a great what if question.
Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the greatest Yeah, Leon, I agree with all this. I agree with everything that, like, Leon is hating on. I agree. I just have to see how bad it is. So, anyway, last game here, was exciting for this one.
Yeah.
DC, and obviously the head coach and all that stuff, but they always show out Audi Field. I think DC sports is just really hot right now. Anyway, obviously coming off the Commander season, the Capitals are great. I just think they're like the Nationals, DC sports, because that's my feed, obviously because of the Commanders fandom, right? Living here in Seattle. Take care, knock off the Birmingham Stallions. What did you make of this?
Well, we were all excited to see the return of Alex Magoo, and he looked good early on, and then whatever Greg Williams was, as we say, defensive coordinators don't call plays, they dial up pressures, and whatever he was dialing up, Birmingham could not figure it out. And there were times where you don't see Skip Holtz a lot, especially on Mike, kind of, I don't want to say lose his temper, but he was getting pretty hot, and he and Alex Magoo were having some strong conversations there. DC's defense, as far as like trying to stop the pass was always kind of a problem, and that was not a problem for them. Whatever Greg Williams was doing was working, and and Jordan Ta'amu looked. And listen, no one. I finally found someone who has more of a problem pronouncing Jordan Ta'amu's name than I do, and it was the play-by-play guy for ESPN. I mean, there was a Tamumu in there one time. I mean, I'm not even kidding. But that looked like a different DC team. We talked about body language, graduates of Body Language University. The body language on that DC team, it was a lot different, man. They were hyped. They looked good. You saw, like, even just having Abram Smith back in the lineup, not even necessarily like with handoffs, but just how hard he plays and blocks and does everything. He's such a key to that. And that looked like a much better team than what we saw. Just seemed to like just kind of ride it out last year.
Just speaking of the Greg Williams dialed it up, I forgot to mention that, the Jaron Horton, can we ESPN, who is it? Sam Acho, right? Can we give the guys a little break? Like, Jaron's trying to dial. I mean, he's calling plays.
He's calling plays, yes.
And he's like, well, Jaron's like, well, I predict. I'm like, leave the man alone. He's playing, he's calling plays. Leave him alone.
You could have picked a better time. Now, it was interesting when they were on offense, he was really starting to talk. He was able to talk to him because he wasn't calling plays and just talking about some different things. So I thought that was, that was good. But you're right. He's asking him a question, and then you see Jaron Horton picking up the walkie-talkie to start to talk. He's like, but he held with it. He wasn't pushing him away, but he's I got to call this play here because we're trying to win a game.
I tweeted. I said there's a very vocal part of the internet that was very excited to see Jaron Horton.
Quite excited.
And not to go back to that game, but it was like Sam discovered real time, I hate Emmanuel Acho. I cannot stand that man. I know Andy hates him because of the way he talks about Justin Herbert, but Sam Acho has the least charisma of any man I've ever met. I mean, I don't know a man with least charisma that's on TV than Sam Acho and him, but Jaron Horton carried that segment. That says a lot about Sam Acho's future in television, that Jaron Horton is saving him on this live segment. But we'll see next week, because he's going to go try again next week, and some other DC is going to be get out of my, do you think Greg Williams, get out of my face?
I don't know. Greg Williams, it seems to me
he's Sharon. I don't know if he likes me or not. He used to DM me a lot, but God bless him. But just to go back to that, I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, Greg Williams has never met a camera he didn't like, so I don't know it. But there will be one. There's going to be an offensive coordinator or a head coach that's eventually going to give him the Bill Parcells, get out of here, leave us alone. But I think also I do wonder if it's not almost ingrained in some of these coaches that, listen, these guys are part of the league. They're just like the referees and everything else. They're part of this game. So, hopefully most of them will understand, yes, he's going to ask me a question at the most inopportune time. I'll just have to say, give me a second. I did what one was awesome. Cole Kublik was out there talking to the kicker before he was on the field, before he was getting ready to kick off. I can't remember, it was after a score or whatever it was, but I just thought that was real. That was really interesting and well done. That he was just standing out there. He's getting ready to kick off. He's like, "Okay, thanks." Kicker says, "All right, thank you," and then he just kicks off. It was great.
I'm not the biggest. I like Cole. He's been on the show, but I'm not the biggest fan of his his sidelines. I think Brock has a little bit more of like the hey, like
right.
Go, hey, get over here. Can I talk to you? hey, and he's always got his mic like, Eric, what's going on?
Right.
Cole. Anyway, the last thing about this, David says, Acho sounds like his mouth is falling down the stairs. So I do like that. So let's get to this because I do need to get out at the top of the hour. This post game again, I completely missed this. Like I saw Greg, right. I think Greg Parks and people had tweeted last night, like, did they say doormat or doorman? And someone needs to ask. I was out of it. Like Dorothy and I were talking, I was so out of it. But then I saw the clip today. I was like, oh my God. So what did you this was, for teams that are really close and fly together and bust together and live together. It's interesting.
Well, I watched the post game with Shannon Harris, and someone did ask him about it, and he just said it was really vague. It was kind of like, well, we're fine now. I went and talked to some of the assistant coaches and just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. And it's something that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But I will say, I don't know that Harry Douglas, who was doing the sidelines, saw exactly what happened because he immediately brought him over. He did say, like, why are you so hyped up? And he was just like, oh, it was a big win. And that's what I heard, too, when someone had posted kind of a cleaned up sound. You couldn't really hear it that well on the broadcast. But someone I saw today had posted where you kind of clean up the sound and hear it. And it sounded like he said doorman, like, you said I was the doorman at the UFL headquarters. I still don't understand what I could never find context for what any of this meant. And there were a lot of people who were coming to Skip Holt's defense saying, like, if he ever said anything like that, it would have been in jest, not in a, it wouldn't have been something where it was an insult. And in fact, Skip Holt seemed pretty taken aback by it. Now, I mean, I'm not trying to defend either one of them. I don't know what happened. I just know what I saw there. And like Skip Holtz, I kind of grabbed him by the shirt and tried to bring him back. It's like, no, I didn't say that, or that's not what I meant. And yeah, it sounded like he said he was a doorman at the UFL headquarters. I'm not sure, but it was a little spicy something for the end of the weekend. If this were the old XFL back in 2001, it would be a total thing, and they'd have them like fisticuffs out in 50-yard line or something. But I don't think they're going to try to build up anything out of this. Those are two professional guys. I hope. I know Skip Holtz is. And I don't know a lot about Shannon Harris.
Well, and I could imagine I don't even want to speculate too much about it. So not. I guess what I would say is this. I think Skip Holtz is a pretty even-keeled person. They've really done a good job to spotlight him, coaching up quarterbacks, talking with Magoo, like you said, during this game. And last season, we saw him working with all the people. So I agree. And then maybe it was a misunderstanding or whatever, but it was hot. I mean, I like it. It makes it, hey, I mean, you want the games to matter.
Yeah, and they mattered, and this was, Birmingham already disappointed, and and what again, like what DC has gone through right before the season, and you got to think that these guys aren't even going to be around if there is a UFL season 3. They're all, that DC crew might be at Tennessee State. So, but yeah, it was an interesting way to end the weekend for sure.
Last thing here real quick. So Birmingham's going to be in Detroit on Friday night here. And then we have Saturday. We're going to have the Showboats here, Defenders, Houston, Battle of the Texas, whatever on Saturday the 6th. And then San Antonio going into St. Louis. What's your most looked to game just as we get out of here? Appreciate everyone sticking around.
Yeah, Stallions, Panthers by far. I mean, it's, the Stallions have to figure out what they're going to do. Skip Holtz said after the game, there wasn't real, he's not going to play two quarterbacks or didn't really feel like he needed to. And he talked about like last year, he couldn't really do it, but he talked about the personalities involved. So I don't know what's going on there. So that's going to be the interesting one. Alex Magoo, if he is the starter versus Bryce Perkins, and Birmingham, they're going to try to turn it around. How many dozens of fans are going to show up for the game? To me, that's the game that I'm keeping the biggest eye on for sure.
Can we talk about them putting the Battlehawks home opener on a FS1.
FS1. What are we doing?
I mean, I just can't figure it out. I know there's like they would say there's a reason, John, but oh my gosh.
That's Sunday night?
Yeah.
I don't get
it. Well, it's 2:30 Eastern time, so it's
I don't.
Oh no, I'm looking at Wednesday. Sorry, no, I'm it's 6:30 Eastern time, 3:30. Yeah,
okay.
So
I don't. I'm sure there's some broadcast strategy behind it. I don't know what it is. Abdul says it's a game after a NASCAR race. So
well, maybe. Hey, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Is that your lead in? I don't know. Maybe
that's good. I really appreciate everyone. Check it out today. Like I said, John and I will figure out. I am flying to Miami overnight tomorrow to go do some work, and then we're back here at Amazon. I think we'll be good next Monday. We'll figure out a time because then I go back to Orlando. So, John, it's a very exciting, very good time. I wish the Guardians were playing. I wish any of these towns I was going was anywhere to the UFL game. I really would go check it out. John, are you going to have more videos on your channel? Remember, everything goes to allfootball.com, but check out John Lewis's channel as well. Anything you have coming up before we get out?
I tried to double my money on $100 worth of bets on week 1 of the UFL. And I got my man XFL Jim to help me out on some betting tips. And I'm going to show you just how close we came to doing that. That video will be coming up soon.
Awesome. I love it. John, I really appreciate it. Sure. Everyone for checking it out. Like and subscribe. Thumbs up. Go do John. And go check out allfootball.com. Those guys have been working. There's
good stuff there.
Oh, my God. I got like 8 different articles I need to post, which is great. It's awesome. So check it out. Enjoy. We'll see everyone next time. I know probably people are more positive than we are. But anyway, we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.